So how did your LinkedIn go today? Someone I talked to recommended
Okay, for anybody online, we're going to be starting in about 5 minutes.
the thing in
The post of this will cut this a little bit out, so you won't have to wait 5 minutes. Be patient. We'll be with you shortly.
I think drops that like a few like I never knew it existed until
Here we go.
Okay. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to DevSecOps and Platform Engineering, a February event. And thank you for coming along. Quite an intimate crowd tonight. So thank you very much for coming along here. We're actually streaming online tonight as well for the first time we've done it since September 2021. So let's hope we've got a few people watching. If you have, hello and welcome to us. Okay, so here's the order of events. We're actually running a bit late already. Doors opened obviously at 6. We've got drinks, got plenty of sushi for those of you here. Yeah, we just missed the intros, but we're doing them now. And then we've got our speaker, who I'll be introducing shortly. Do you want to move to the next slide?
I got it.
So this is us. This is the DevSecOps London Gathering crew, as you may already know. So Steve, Jess, and myself. We never seem to be able to get all three of us in a room at the same time. But we had Jess and me last time. Now we've got Steve and me. So that's us. If you want to get in touch with us, that's how to get in touch with us. We're on Twitter and we're also on LinkedIn. I don't think any of us are on Mastodon yet. I'm certainly not. I don't think Steve is. So yeah, that's us. Next slide. So you can get hold of us individually, but if you want to get hold of us as a group, then these are the ways to do it. You can send us an email. You can go to the website first, where you can get hold of us. But you can send us an email at team@dsolg.com. Very simple to remember. It's all three of us are answer the emails on there, so you'll get one of us all of us at the same time. Obviously, you found us on Meetup, and we always announce our events on Meetup. We also have LinkedIn and YouTube, which is I think we're streaming on both those now.
Yes.
Yes, we are. We're streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn. So cool. And we also have a podcast, DSO Overflow podcast. So we've actually released the February one already. That went out on February the 6th, and a January one. So the February one is Paul Schwarzenberger, who spoke at an event last year. But if you want to listen to our podcasts, then you can go to any one of your streaming service providers, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can just find us as DSO Overflow Podcast. And so please subscribe. Please also leave us 5 stars in the comment. We really appreciate it because it helps us boost our numbers. This is what normally Jess does, but I'll be doing this tonight. So we like to give a shout out to other people that support us, and we support them as well. We also know that We Shape Tech Talks are doing a talk here tomorrow night as well. 2 very good talks. One actually the same speaker. Yeah, it's the same speaker, Rob Coward. He'll be talking about. Let me think. He's talking about passwords and authentication, and I think he's talking about the pipeline. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I haven't seen the talk yet, but I'll be coming along. So if anybody wants to come on tomorrow night, that'd be great. Next slide. I think will be your WeShape. Did WeShape want to come and say something? Yeah. So this is Vic from WeShape.
Hi everyone. WeShape are a tech consultancy, and we specialise mostly on DevOps, but we cover everything tech from product management through to software development. So if you are looking for a new contract, everything we have is outside R35 and mostly remote, and come and find me. Cheers.
Thank you, Vic.
Any sponsors?
There you can sponsors.
Got that. Well, we wouldn't be buying all the food and having all the fun stuff in the venues if it weren't for the actual sponsors that help us fund all of this stuff. So big thanks to those sponsors assisting. Sometimes some different assisting comes, but if you are familiar with them, they've created a service community backbone around that. They want a solution that can help you detect and respond to threats. Go check it out. And then more recent gold sponsor is Contract Security. They've got a nice little marketing blurb there, information velocity and linear unit security platform. I'm not going to read all that. You can figure it out. Obviously, a marketing person wrote it. Do go check them out for an additional security solution. And of course, Prisma by Palo Alto Networks. Kind of everything in the cloud. It's kind of we're running out of things that Prisma Cloud doesn't actually do to try and secure cloud environments, from infrastructure as code to running Kubernetes to a recent acquisition of cybersecurity that is in the AppSec space as well. So do go check out them. If you would like to become a speaker, you can be up here like Simon. All the glory of live streams and YouTube and LinkedIn. Contact us after this or email us at team@dslg.com. We would love to. We're booked up to about May, so there's plenty of spaces left in the year. And this is our speaker. Now, I could read all this, but that would be ridiculous. He's right there. So he's going to introduce himself in just a moment. We're going to hand over after we switch everything around. And I think that's it. That's the introductions done. And Wallace wants to say something. What? What's wrong? He wants me to come over there. The sound quality of this is bad. Vic, the sound. Oh, you're listening on YouTube? This is bad? Are you listening on YouTube? We're being told the stream is bad. I think Simon's going to be a lot better because he has a better microphone. Let's try that. All right. Sit tight. Over to you, Simon. This for the crowd.
Am I muted on the other one?
Unmute yourself. I don't know. Did you mute it? Is it on?
I don't know. 20th person? The bar's moving.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yep.
And it looks good here. You should be aligned and good to go. Now we switch over your slides if you don't want to stop sharing.
Steve, I have to say I was a bit distracted by your silky smooth voice. But let me try and overcome that.
Are you showing your screen yet?
Yes.
Okay. Let me share this screen with the world. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong one. This is all part of the process. Screen. I have to bring you in. Oh. I'll share. A Zoom screen. Just here. Perfect.
Get you a really good episode of Blind Date up here. It's just enough chairs. I was also distracted by that. Anyway.
Good to go.
Perfect.
Okay.
And everything is working? YouTube okay? Just checking. This is just my stalling tactic.
All right. Sound is good back.
Do you want me to say something else? Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Steve. Such a smooth voice and good sound engineer. Thank you very much. Right, so thank you. I'm Simon. I like complex problems, cats and coffee, the 3 C's of life. But thank you very much for having me, the venue, Vic, and also the 3 of you. Thank you. Right, so I want to talk about helping DevOps flourish. And that really just involves 3 things for me. The first one is the goal of a business, because without a business, there is no improvement. Without a goal, there is no improvement. I want to talk about NCOM, and NCOM is just a fictional business based on true stories. And the reason I want to talk about them is they can bring some of the ideas to life rather than just being conceptual. And then I want to talk about the role of technology and improvement. Quick warning, I'm going to ask our wonderful audience questions as we go. The reason for that, though, is not to test you, but it's to test me to make sure I make sense and I'm conveying the material in a way that connects. And I'm just really, what's the word, plagiarizing ideas from other people. If they sound like good ideas, it's because of these guys. If it sounds like bad ideas, it's because I've done it just misjustice, injustice. Right, so let me jump in. So let's talk about the goal of the business. I'll keep pausing so you can ask questions and I can ask you questions. So I believe that the goal of a business is to increase profits now in the future. And I really hope as you look at that, you kind of, the hairs in the back of your neck are going up, going, that sounds really capitalistic. Because it did to me. But there's some key words in that that really kind of are subtle but important, which is now and in the future. And the reason for that is, if we don't provide satisfaction to the market, if we don't look after our customers, if we don't look after the environment as well as our shareholders, we won't be able to make a profit in the future. And likewise, even close to my heart, if we don't provide a secure and satisfying work environment for our employees, they're not going to stick around. If we don't look after our employees today, we can't generate revenue in the future. So for me, this is really, really important. I hope what maybe sounded very capitalistic sounds a little bit more communistic now. We need to look after everyone in order to generate revenue in the future. And if you just hold on to that and believe me for a little bit longer, I want to talk about 2 ways to increase profits. The first way is prioritize reducing costs. In my simplistic mind, and my mind is very simplistic, what that means to me is, of all the money coming to our business, we need to make sure that less flows back out. And the other way of increasing profits is by increasing revenue. And again, in my simplistic mind, that just means more money comes into our business in the first place. Pretty straightforward. But there's 2 interesting things about each of those. But before that, the key word on that slide is prioritize. Prioritizing and reducing costs doesn't mean that we forget about revenue, and prioritizing revenue doesn't mean that we let costs spiral out of control. It's just which one sits in first place. There can only be one. But if we think about prioritizing reducing costs, there's 2 things about that. The first thing is that in a business, everything is a cost. Everything is leaking costs. Yeah, there's travel expenses, of course, but there's your real estate, there's your cloud costs, there's your infrastructure, there's paying your employees, pretty important. All of those things are costs. If we prioritize reducing costs, where do we focus? Where does our focus begin and end? And the second thing is that costs you can only reduce down to 0. And the great thing about that, the perverse thing about reducing costs down to 0 is you're out of business. If you don't have any costs, you have no employees, you have nothing, you've gone. So you don't actually want to be fully successful in that. If we look at prioritizing increasing revenue, 2 interesting things about that. The first thing is that I believe if you prioritize increasing revenue, you have a very clear focus for improvement. And I want to argue that for the rest of the talk, and I want you to tell me where I'm wrong. But the second thing is that theoretically, you can increase your revenue no end. I'm not saying it's that easy. If it was that easy, we'd all be Elon Musks or whatever. It's not that easy, but it's nice to know that there's no upper limit. So in summary, prioritizing cost reduction, it inhibits focus because everything in an organization is a cost. Where do you begin? Where do you end? And also limits improvement because you can only go down to 0. Likewise, prioritizing revenue growth provides clear focus and unlimits improvement. I'll provide you my belief why it offers a clear focus, but it unlimits improvement because we can grow profits no end theoretically. I want to tell you about Encom next. Before I do, any questions? Any questions from anyone in the audience or from you at home? If we can talk to them, I don't know. Can we talk to them? Are they real people? Any questions? I'll be pausing regularly, so if something comes up, jump in. Right, so Encom. So Encom, based on true story, or several true stories kind of brought together, is a bespoke software business. And what I want to do is I want to tell you just a little bit about them so we can kind of look at them constructively as we move forward. So Encom, there's a few steps involved in their business. The first thing that it starts with is a customer needing help. They have a problem and they want software to fix that problem. The first people in Encom who help are the sales team. They find the customers, they bring them in. We then have designers who design the interface of the software. We have developers who develop the software. And then we have finance who, once the software is complete, go and collect payment. Really, really, really simple. Simplified, but that's all we need for this. And then we bring in the money. So it's like 4 steps to profit. It's like the name of the next book. And it also looks like a Monopoly board, so let's just go all the way. And our goal is to go from left to right with every project as quickly as possible, because that's when we get paid. So I haven't told you much. So there's a lot of ambiguity here, and I'll tell you more in a second. But before I do, does anyone have any ideas how, given what Encom does, given the steps involved, how can we increase revenue?
More customers.
More customers, yeah. And what does that mean? If you're the CEO, what would you do to enable that?
Spend more money on sales.
Okay, cool. So you're kind of looking over here. That makes sense. Anything else? Any other suggestions?
Spend money on marketing.
Yeah, that makes sense. We could kind of insert a step here. Marketers kind of lay the ground for the salespeople, create awareness. Yeah, like that. That's good. Yeah.
Develop software faster.
Develop software faster. Yeah, that makes sense. Because we can't until we get the software develops, we can't collect payments. Makes sense. Cool. Okay. Yes, Steve.
Skip security.
Skip security. I think we already do that. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let me move. Let me give you a little bit more. So I am really dead simple, as you know. So if I was the CEO of Encom, underqualified, but I'll try anyway. My belief is that money comes in from that final step, collecting payments. So I believe if we just do that one step faster, if we collect more payments in any given period, we'll have more revenue. But the problem is that we can't collect payments until we've actually developed the software. So okay, so let's do that step faster as well. So if we develop the software faster, then we can collect the payments faster. That's great. Okay. But the problem is we can't develop the software faster unless we design interfaces faster, because we can't develop software unless the designers, in this case, given how they work, have designed the user interface. So we need to do that faster as well. That's great. Okay. But the problem is we can't design interfaces for software or for clients that we haven't brought in yet. That would be like minority report seeing into the future. That'd be really good, but impossible. So we need to do that step faster. So I think all I've said is that we just do everything faster and get more profits, right? I don't think that's maybe. So there's something wrong with one of my assumptions here. And I think as much as I like the monopoly board, I don't think it's particularly helpful. So if I just get rid of that and imagine the organization as a pipe, I think this maybe will help me see. I think the assumption I've held up until this point is that I've assumed that every part of a business works at the same rate, the same clock speed. And I don't think that's really correct. Even if we just look in software development in an organization, we can see that work piles up in between teams. And that's for many reasons, but one of the reasons is they work at different speeds, they're doing different things. And if we look at Encom's case, if we imagine it like a pipe where by definition, statistically, a pipe is always going to have a narrowest point. In Encom's case, it was the development step. Through no fault of the team, but the development team, given what they did, given it very different from the rest of the organization, in this case, was working at the slowest rate. They were doing the least in the most amount of time. No fault of their own. It's just very different to the other aspects of the business. Did that make sense so far? Yeah, okay, perfect. And there's something really, and the way that we can see that in Encom's case is that work was piling up more in front of the development team compared to anywhere else in the business. But there's something really interesting about bottlenecks for me. If we assume that the development team can complete one project a month, that's the rate at which they work, and all of the other teams can go much, much faster, they have more capacity. The revenue at which, the revenue of Encom is equal to the rate at which the bottleneck operates. And the reason for that, if we just look at, for example, collecting payments, the finance team, even if they have the capacity to collect 10 payments a month, they can only collect payments for the software that's been developed. They're dependent on the previous step. So they can only go at the speed of the development team, one project a month. They can't go any faster. So everything else there, before and after, is excess capacity. And that's great, but we want to be able to use that. Right, so I told you a little bit more. Any other answers? Now, given I've told you a bit more of how we can increase revenue in Encom, where would you focus? Development team?
Yeah, increase the development team. Increase, get rid of the friction of the development team.
Okay, cool. So I heard increase the development team or reduce the friction of the development team. I like it. Any other views? Completely get rid of development. Possibly, but I guess ChatGPT. Yeah, it's alternatives to the development team. So that step, whatever or whoever it's done by, is faster. I'm hearing, is that right? ChatGPT, otherwise.
Higher value customers.
What's it? High value customers? Yeah. I don't disagree. But one thing that I've learned the hard way, I guess, is that we don't set the prices, the market sets the prices. But I see what you're saying. There might be certain niches. That means like if we get to health software, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, possibly that can give us some way, yeah. Yeah, but if it hurts more, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I like these answers. So I agree with you. We need to somehow help the development team. Absolutely. Okay. I have two thought experiments for you. One is, what happens if we instead focus improvement anywhere else other than the development team? It's not going to change the output. I like that. Any other takers?
No, if anything, it causes more of a backlog.
Ooh, more of a backlog. Tell me more. Why that? Why would that be the case?
If you find more customers faster,
yeah,
fine, that's great. You've got more into the pipeline. If you get the designers to work faster, it doesn't matter. You're just going to back up.
It's going to back up. I love it.
You also get about customer satisfaction issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sell more and you can't produce.
Yeah.
You end up with upset customers. And you end up with
Longer lead times. Yeah. if I understand correctly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Work piles up faster is my answer, and I think you've done a better job of answering that than me. Perfect. Another last thought experiment. What would happen if we unilaterally cut costs? So say we cut every team by 20%.
Then development pipes likely to get slower because you've got less resources.
Development's likely to get slower because we have less. Yes.
You could align the other parts of the pipe to align with the constraint.
Oh, that's interesting. I like this. I want to come back to that. It's very astute. So the thought for people at home, wherever the camera is, the idea there was that if we made everything, you can't see my points, there's no point in me doing that. If we made every part of the pipe, every team have the same throughput as the development team, we might be able to cut costs without reducing throughput. I like this. I want to come back to that. That's very astute. Anything else? No. Okay. Yes, I agree. So if we cut everything by 20%, revenue goes down. So that's something really interesting. The great thing about having excess capacity is we want to make sure the development team always have work to do. If we reduce the pipe unilaterally, so it's all the same, we're shedding our excess capacity. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I guess there's two things that we need to be aware of. One is when Murphy strikes, when there's something unexpected that happens, we now no longer can catch up. Our development team will be starved, or any team might be starved because we don't have a bit of wiggle room. And the second thing is, if we ever want to grow in the future, we lost our. And I can see you nodding, I can see you're very aware of that. So yeah, but I think it's a very astute. I've only heard 2 people say that, and I absolutely love that comment. We need to be aware of that. So we can, but it might hurt us in the future if we're not aware of what we're doing. All the implications. Perfect, forward. So recap, the rate a business can generate money is the rate of the slowest part, the bottleneck. If our priority is improving revenue, then we have a clear focus, the bottleneck. So this is going back to the beginning where I said, I promise I'll tell you if we focus on revenue, why I believe there's a single point we can focus for improvement in a business. The reason being is we want to focus, as you demonstrated to me, we want to focus on the bottleneck because improvement anywhere else is waste. Perfect, cool. Any questions or comments or disagreements? They help me learn.
Now, one other comment actually to do with what's on that.
Yeah.
You're going to have big jobs and small jobs.
You can have big jobs and small jobs.
Potentially. Not every thing. So you could potentially say, well, that's a big one, it's going to take a long time. But we've got 5 small ones, schedule them in quicker. Because they'll get them through.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So you could kind of do some kind of weighting your prioritization, like shortest job first. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess in terms of revenue.
Software or anything that's reusable as well, maybe there's stress on support or customization, but you can reuse or resell the same software or engineering to some degree.
So SaaS and kind of reusable parts components. Yeah.
Right.
What I'm hearing in both your answers, I think.
Also, how many smaller jobs you produce to lose a bigger contract?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an opportunity cost there. But I think what you're both giving me is that the more that we can make use of the limited resource we have, be it by changing our prioritization approach, be it by using reusable components, SaaS or otherwise. Wow, sound like my OnlyFans. Then we can make better use of that limited capacity and hopefully increase throughput. So yeah, that resonates. How we do it, we need to make the most that we can of that bottleneck because that dictates the overall throughput of the company. Yeah, I like it. Any other points or questions? Or comments? No. Okay, I'll continue. Very charitable. Okay, improving. So if the bottleneck is the linchpin of the organization, is the focus for improvements, what do we do? So we need to increase the rate that we complete work in any organization, go from left to right. And it's never really a straight line. There's always obstacles that get in the way. But there's 2 things about those obstacles that I find really interesting. The first thing is that obstacles tend to come from elsewhere. What I mean by that is if I'm in a team of developers, the obstacles that I'm encountering are probably going to come from elsewhere in the organization. If they were caused by something in my team, everyone's smart. They would have removed those obstacles. So that really only leaves obstacles that are caused by something outside of my control or outside of my influence. The second thing is that often the same obstacles have often many obstacles have the same underlying causes. What I mean by that is my neighboring team, they probably have similar obstacles. And if we trace the cause of those obstacles down, we'll probably find it's pointing us to the same thing in the organization, a process or otherwise. Similar when you go to your general practitioner, I hope you don't have to, but if you did, and you have several symptoms, they're probably coming from the same thing. We accept that in medicine, but we don't always see that in organizations as clearly as I wish I had earlier in my career. And the great thing about that is if we can find that underlying cause, if we accept that many obstacles could come from the same underlying cause, if we find that, we focus our efforts there, we can get rid of many obstacles for many teams with much less effort. So summary, an obstacle in one part of the organization is often caused by something elsewhere. Many obstacles tend to come from just a few underlying causes, like when we go to our GP. And if we can then find and tackle those few underlying causes, we can dissolve many obstacles in one go with much less effort. Right. So whilst we've been in this room, the directors of NCOM have come together in one of the other meeting rooms here. And they said, Simon, he's not really a looker, but there's some things he's saying which make sense. So we do believe that the development team is the one that's struggling the most through no fault of their own. They just have the lowest throughput. And there's some obstacles that we've seen in and around that team that we are aware of. The first one is that projects are progressing slowly, as you'd expect. Staff are quitting, and customers are going elsewhere. They're going to competitors. So they had a little think, and they were like, okay, we have an idea. Let's introduce Agile to shorten feedback loops. And the reason for that is they believe that if they can demonstrate software early and often to customers, maybe that'll build their confidence, make them stick around. Maybe it would help developers work in a way that feels better for them, so they'll stick around as well. And yeah, bring impediments forward so projects move faster. So my question to you is this a good solution? I see some people thinking.
Depends what you're producing.
Depends on what you're producing?
Yeah. I'm not sure I want to fly an aeroplane, for instance, that's a viable product.
You're not sure you want to fly an airplane that hasn't been a viable product? Yep, that makes sense. So it depends. I'm hearing from you. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it depends what you're making. Any
It's
other
an
ones?
interesting hypothesis as opposed to a good solution. So let's try it.
You're seeing it as a hypothesis as opposed to a solution. Let's try it. I like that. I like that, guys.
Scientific approach.
Scientific approach. Very good. Very good. Any other views on this solution yet? No. Okay. Let's keep going. So I agree with you. I think it depends. This is, I think, the final animation you have to put up with in my, because I can't really do animations. But it depends, right? It feels like I've given you very little information to go on. And I feel like there's a lot to be uncovered. And Akoff says, the more of the context of a problem that a scientist can comprehend, the greater his chances of finding a truly adequate solution. And in this case, the context of the problem is the business, is the organization, is NCOM, and how it works. And Steve Tender nicely steps in here, and he says, well, initially, when we try to understand organizations, the context of many problems we face, it looks really complex, and it's really hard to understand. But how can it be complex when we created it ourselves? It's just that we need to join the dots. And cause and effect thinking can be a way of joining the dots to help us understand the inherent simplicity that is actually there. So that's kind of what I want to do with you now. So I'm going to use something from the theory of constraints, just a current reality tree, but it's just a cause and effect diagram that I find very helpful. I'm just going to teach you how to read it, but then I'll narrate you through it for NCOM. So an arrow in this diagram, and a cause and effect diagram is if-then. So if the lamp is not plugged in, then the lamp will not turn on. And the circle is an and clause. So if it is raining and if I'm outside, then I'll get wet. Make sense? Cool. Okay. So these are the obstacles that the directors of NCOM shared with us just now. Staff are quitting, projects progressing slowly, customers going elsewhere. There's one more that they let me know of just now, which is that margins are reducing. But even if we just stare at these obstacles in isolation, we can already start to see that there's some potential cause and effect relationships here. So, for example, if customers going elsewhere are not coming to us, that might be one reason why margins are reducing. We're not going to have the revenue from them, potentially. And also, if staff are quitting, that might be why projects progress slowly, depending on how many quitting, of course, but something we should think about. And there's something else. In NCOM's case, what we found was that timeliness is important to customers. And if timeliness is important to customers and projects are progressing slowly, that might be a reason why customers are going elsewhere. Also, I believe that finding, hiring, and training staff has a cost, like 30% of the annual salary. And so if staff are quitting, it may be one reason why margins are reducing. I don't think it's a significant amount, but could be. It's notable. Something we found in NCOM, the client inspired this is that staff time was fully utilized for projects. So if they had 8 hours in any given day to work, they were spending 10 hours on projects. And if skill growth takes time, which I think we all agree it does for me anyway, probably more than most people, those two things together meant that staff weren't developing their skills. They're working all their time on projects and just didn't have time to develop the skills that matter to them. If that was the case, and staff value skill growth, as we know from, as always Daniel Pink reminds us, it's one of the pillars of intrinsic motivation, then that might be why they're quitting. They can go elsewhere and they can have all the time to learn and grow and progress in their career. But also if staff quit, we have fewer staff initially for a little while, spread across the same number of projects, and that's a bit of a downward spiral here. The remaining staff are going to be spread even more thinly. But there's something else here that's even more important if you're looking through the lens of the organization, which is that if staff aren't developing their skills, some skills are going to be rare. And if some skills are rare and multiple projects require those rare skills that just don't have time to develop because we're constantly pushing our staff to deliver, then we have few staff that need to work on multiple projects at any one time. And if that is the case, and most humans can only do one thing at any one time, apparently that's changing, but it hasn't for me, then that's the reason why projects will progress slowly. And I just want to bring that out because it's something that haunts me a little bit. We see multitasking way too often. So I'm just going to talk about multitasking for a second before I do any questions about what I've shared with you so far. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Let me just zoom in on multitasking for a second. So I found this quite a helpful diagram. It's not mine. So if we think about a project, and if we did all our projects sequentially with no interruptions, one at a time, it would look like this, right? A, B, C. Project A, Project B, Project C. They completed these points. Absolutely wonderful. Whereas you probably know better than me. If we multitask, if everyone's multitasking, and all they could do is kind of go from one project to the next, we might see something like this. Do a little bit of A, a little bit of C, a little bit of B, a little bit of C, a little bit of A, a little bit of B, C, A, B, C. And what that means is we only finish at these points. So project C hasn't really suffered at all, but project A and B has. But that doesn't take into account, there we go. So that's the delay as a result of choosing multitasking, right? But it doesn't take into account things like context switching, which we know eats productivity. So actually every project is lost out. So everybody loses, not just the project managers, but the staff, as we've seen, because they don't have time to learn and they're having to pay this mental tax of context switching, which isn't very nice from a flow perspective. Did that make sense? Anyone see anything differently there? Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to jump back in now. So yes, so if only one thing can be done at once, but some staff are on multiple projects because they haven't had the opportunity to develop the skills that are needed in the organization, they're rare, then projects progress more slowly. And that's why customers are going elsewhere and margins are reducing. Also, if projects progress slowly, and we know as an organization that timeliness is important to our customers, well, management might just say, well, I've got to deliver this. Let's prioritize delivery. That's a reinforcing loop, because if management prioritizes delivery and they believe maximizing staff utilization increases the rate of delivery, what I mean by that is management believe that by making sure everyone if everyone delivers as much as they can in any given period, will deliver more. If everyone's busy, we'll deliver more in any given period. If everyone's fully utilized, we'll deliver more in any given period. Oh, screenshot. If that is the case, so sorry, did that make sense? I stuttered there. Yeah, I stuttered there. So yeah, so if management prioritizes delivery, they need to do something about this problem, and they believe that maximizing staff utilization increases the rate of delivery, and keeping everyone as busy as possible means we can deliver more in any given period. What will they do? They'll make sure that everyone is fully utilized, working 10 hours a day. And yeah, we have a downward spiral there. And that's seen. So what we've got there is, because we need to prioritize delivery, we keep everyone busy. Because we keep everyone busy, we don't have time to learn. Because we don't have time to learn, people quit because they can learn elsewhere and progress in their career. If they quit, projects progress more slowly. We have to rehire people, which costs money. If projects move more slowly, our customers suffer, our customers go elsewhere, we lose margins for another reason. And also in all of that, we get worse because we don't have time to learn the skills that we need for today and tomorrow. And we therefore have the few people remaining spread across more projects. Make sense? Right. So where is the common underlying cause? What I mean by this is, if you could point a magic wand at any one of these boxes to focus your improvement efforts on any one of these boxes, and I'm being very selfish, I'm being very unfair here, I'm only giving you one box to point at. What box would you point at?
Staff utilization.
Staff utilization. So I've got one vote for staff utilization. Is that the one? That's the one? Okay, which is, yeah, just on the left there. Any others? Management. So this one here? Management prioritizes delivery? Okay, I'm interested in that. Any others? Anyone else see anything different?
So I think the last one, reduce projects.
Reduce projects. Sorry, where was that? Bottom one. This one. Oh, okay. Tell me more about that, because I'm interested. Because let me just recap that. So staff are quitting, so we have less staff, which means there's fewer staff spread across the remaining projects. So I think if I understood correctly, Glenn, you're saying that we put some projects on pause. Okay. So we readjust the workload.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for helping me understand. That makes sense. Yeah. Anything else?
Multiple projects.
Multiple projects. So this thing.
Next one.
This one. Some staff work on multiple projects. Ooh, okay, that's interesting. And tell me a little bit more about that. If we only have some skills that are rare at any given point, which means that if we have many projects that need a skill that only a few people have, how can we? I think you're seeing something different. That's another way we could tackle that, maybe. And I'm picking on you, so feel free to say, go away, Simon. I don't know, but it feels like that's important. That's a very fair answer. Train more people. Train people in the rare skills. Yeah. Does that feel right to you as well? That feels good. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I understood. Didn't mean to pick on you. Thanks for. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm hearing slow down and train some people because we know it's a problem. Is that right? Okay, cool. Yeah, that feels good too. I like that. Your constraint is your people. Tell me more.
So when we went the limited throughput of that pipeline,
Yeah.
and we need to focus on the constraint. The constraint in this process is the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right, not the workload, we've got plenty of that.
Yeah.
We don't have enough people, that's our constraint. So that's what we need to focus on. So how do we increase the capacity of our people? Or stop the capacity, reduce it.
Okay, I like
That's
that.
where you want to invest in people, training or whatever it has to be, to stop them quitting.
Perfect. So I'm hearing that we have plentiful business, which is a blessing, but our people and their skills are the constraint, and we need to invest in them. Is that? Thank you. Yeah, that feels good. That feels good. Anything else? No. Okay. No, I love this. Okay. Yes, I would say. So I don't see things differently to you. I see things similar. The only thing I see this thing here as a problem. And let me try and see if it connects with you. But all the things you're pointing out feel right to me. The reason I see this as a problem is this thing here feels like a belief. Management believes that maximizing staff utilization increases the rate of delivery. And so that's the way that they're choosing to respond to the downward spiral of, oh my God, our customers are unhappy and we need to make the most of the people we have. So that belief is informing them and therefore saying, let's keep everyone really busy. So I see that belief informing that behavior, and that behavior is what you said, feels like the dangerous thing. And that behavior is stopping, as you said, investing in our people, training our people, and all the things that you're kind of pointing to. So I just see something a few clicks before as the focal point to allow us to do what you're pointing to. Does that feel okay? Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Great, okay. What would be the impact of the original solution? And I promise then we'll pause for a second. So the original solution, just to remind you, was, I don't know why this is that color, that's my bad. Introduce Agile to shorten feedback loops. Can anyone, hey, go Raj. Good to see you. Can anyone, it's good to see you. Can anyone tell me, if we introduce Agile to shorten feedback loops, what the impact of that might be? Because it felt quite good to the directors. What part of this diagram do you think it could help us with? Cool, Reg knows the answer. You also know all my jokes, so and they're not that funny already. So, okay, I'm gonna. So I really struggled. I was like, I don't think anything, except maybe if timeliness is important to customers and we give them a demo every week, maybe they'll go, oh, okay, yeah, I see something's happening, at least initially. But then they'll see, oh, well, okay, yeah, well, nothing's really happening very fast at all, so yeah, let's go elsewhere. So I think initially that might dampen things, that might help a little bit, but not much. Nothing compared to what you guys have suggested. And shout up if you think that isn't quite right. Right, so recap, cause and effect thinking like a current reality tree can help us find and focus on the underlying cause as far to the left as possible to eliminate the effects, which we had on the right-hand side. Understand why focusing anywhere that isn't an underlying cause leads only to temporary improvement, as we saw with the idea of agile, which is kind of getting in one of the effects, tackling one of the effects directly. And I just love that quote, which is, we fail more often because we solve the wrong problem than because we get the wrong solution to the right problem. In this case, agile, fine, it's a fair, there's nothing wrong with agile, there's nothing good or bad about it inherently, it just depends where you apply it. And in this case, full utilizing staff time from, it's yada, 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 you already know that. Cool, one more interlude. Is everyone keeping up? I'm throwing so much at you. Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so I have a challenge for you, and this challenge is doubly hard because you have to do it all in your head. So I need you to imagine, if it's okay, a piece of paper with 9 dots in the shape of a square like this. And I also need you to imagine that you have a pen in your left or right hand, or both if you want. And what I want you to do is I want you to try, with only 4 dots and without removing your imaginary pen from your imaginary paper, to join all those 9 dots together. As you can see, I'm trying this on the right-hand side, and all I'm managing to do is connect 8 dots. I can't get the last one, no matter how I do it. So I'm going to give you a second. Firstly, did that make sense, the challenge? Yeah, okay. I'll give you a minute to think about it. I couldn't work this out. Oh, any inspiration coming from anyone?
You need to make the lines longer.
You need to make the lines longer?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Also, you go further across and then you change the angles at which you come back at.
Oh, I like
I
this.
don't know, I can't actually picture in my head, but I'm getting the vibe that probably is. Because you're constrained by your 9 dots. You went past to say where there would have been a 4th dot, maybe.
Yeah.
And come back and you'll take those 2 out on the edge there.
Yeah.
Come back to the top that way.
Jeez.
And then you'll go back that way. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Jeez. Wow. Okay. And I tried this with a real pen and a real paper, and I couldn't get that. Whereas you've done it all in your head. That's.
Is that right?
It's not wrong. I love it. Any other? Hey, good to have you. Any other solutions?
Can you make the pen bigger?
Can you make the pen bigger? Oh, tell me more. Tell me more. Honestly, what comes up for
Make
you?
it bigger, that's one line covers all.
Yeah. So if the pen's thick enough, you could do more than one. Yeah, that's very fair. I didn't tell you. I didn't say you can do that. That's another good solution. I like it. Any others? Glenn already knows this. Experiment with a circle. Oh, my geometry isn't good enough to that's wrong. Go on.
Take the final answer?
Go for it, please.
Fold the paper.
Fold the paper. And tell me more about how you do that.
Well, you fold the paper. You fold the paper along both the vertical axes or both horizontal axes.
Okay. Yeah.
So that you've essentially got 2 rows of dots together and you just go around the paper.
Cool. Love it. Thank you, Raj. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So you, as an audience, got them all. So there's two answers that I know. I'm sure there's more. And this is all coming from Akov's book, The Art of Problem Solving. Again, all the good ideas are online. So there's 2 solutions here. One is folding paper. Cool, Raj. Thank you. And then also the other one. Thank you. And I didn't get these because, well, let me just tell you another Akov quote. I think it's the penultimate one, which is that creativity is shackled by self-imposed constraints. Therefore, the key lies in developing an ability to identify such constraints and deliberately remove them. So, for example, you said, if we had a bigger pen, right? Absolutely. I didn't say you could do that. Sorry? Yeah, or smaller dots, absolutely, right? Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I didn't say you couldn't do that. And the ones here, just to go through these 2 solutions, because they're great too, is the assumption that you need to break to go from the left to the top right is you need to break the assumption that lines must be drawn within the perimeter of the square. And that's exactly what you did in your mind. And to find the bottom right one is that you need to recognize that you need to break the assumption that the paper must lie flat whilst lines are drawn. Thank you, Gaurav. You saw through that one.
What was your answer?
You remembered it, so credit. So as Akov says, creative solutions often come from surfacing and reevaluating our assumptions. And if we really do believe that, and we go back to NCOM, what's that? Isn't that an assumption? But is it a valid assumption? Every assumption is valid. Okay, is it a correct assumption? Does it stand true in experience? You don't think it's incorrect? If you overload staff, they get pissed off and go. I
know from my own, when I'm getting overloaded, I end up sticking my foot down and go.
Yeah.
There's too much to do here. I can't spin that many plates.
Yeah, I know how you feel.
Across multiple projects.
Yeah, we know on the receiving end. Yes, I've been there too. Anyone else have any views on that? No? Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. And so what's interesting here is we've empirically played this out, right? We've empirically shown how if we do believe this, what happens? As you said, staff get annoyed and leave. We've seen also what the impact of all of that is for our customers as well as us as a business in terms of margins. So empirically, we know it's not true. But also theoretically, we know it's not true from Kingsman's formula. And my mentor, Noah Cantor, puts it really well that I think Kingsman's formula, and I'm not a mathematician, so you can correct me, please, that if we utilize a resource, a CPU or whatever, for an individual above 80%, depending on the variability of work, queue lengths will grow to infinity. So we know theoretically it's not true as well. And so what Noah Cantor suggests is that we should only plan work to 40%. And that leaves 20% utilization of staff to deal with unplanned work. Who doesn't have unplanned work? And 20% for continuous improvement. Because who doesn't continuously improve or learn? And that means that our queue length won't grow. And so I'm curious what will happen if we replace this assumption, which is valid, but we've proven incorrect. So thank you for that. Yeah, the term's incorrect. I use that with this assumption here that my friend and mentor has given me. But before we go there, just want to recap. So often the underlying cause of obstacles is an assumption that no longer stands. That's incorrect. That we've proven incorrect. Correcting the assumption can help dissolve the problem and its effects. And before I kind of answer the previous question, where can technology help? So if we just turn to put a technology lens on this, imagine you're the CTO, you've been asked to solve this horrendous problem, and all you can use is technology. You can't do anything else. Any ideas of what you might do that could help?
Automate something in the process.
Automate something in the process. Cool.
To take that burden off of.
Just take the burden off. Yeah, that feels good. Any other? I'll come back to that. I like that. Any others? Cool. We'll go with that one. I like it. So let's presuppose the solution. So let's presuppose the solution. The solution can only be technical, and a lot of the time that's often how our mind hinders us. At least it hinders me. And so if we assume that technology is a solution, and I'm going to go with introducing developer pipelines because it just sounds so cool, it will maybe help initially. It will help the staff be less utilized, right? And so maybe for a little while, it means that staff can develop their skills. But my gut feeling is if we still have this assumption in play, these guys will seem less utilized and we'll give them more work. So I feel it would give us temporary relief, but it won't fix the problem because we'll just load them with more work. Do tell me where I'm wrong if that doesn't feel right. So if we go with that, so let's leave that there because, hey, it's helped, right? But let's just change this as well. Let's change the assumption. Let's plan work to 40%. If we do that as well, I believe that then really, truly, staff time is no longer fully utilized by projects. They have spare capacity, they have spare time in their day. And that means that they have time to develop their skills, and this starts to grow the problem and connect with some of your solutions, that some less skills are rare. More people have more skills. And it means that staff now have time to learn, and they're not going to quit for that reason, at least. And if that is the case, and we continue playing this out, we've got rid of this downward spiral because staff probably won't quit for that reason. So we no longer need to spread fewer staff across the same number of projects. So we got rid of that downward spiral. And we also, if there are a few rare skills now, then we don't need to spread the same stuff across many projects, which means we don't need to multitask, and therefore projects won't need to progress so slowly. We've eroded this. And if projects are no longer progressing slowly, and timeliness is important to customers will no longer go elsewhere. And that's one, margins won't reduce for that reason. Also, staff aren't quitting, margins won't reduce for that reason. And also, staff aren't quitting, projects won't slow for that reason. And everything is right with the world for a minute or two. Did that make sense? It's kind of this ripple effect. Cool, recap. So developer pipelines may provide some short-term relief to overwhelmed staff. However, all problems will remain if staff time is fully utilized on projects, if we leave that assumption in place that's hurting us. So change the assumption, to change the behavior, to dissolve the problem. Here are some other invalidated assumptions. I'm sure, there's infinite numbers, right? Our assumptions are just approximations of reality. So there's infinite numbers, but these are the ones I've hit as a manager, I've hit as a consultant, that still feel very tempting to employ. Like managers can motivate staff. We can only create the conditions for staff to feel motivated if they want to, but we can't control them. Give staff perform better. Right, anyway. So yeah, and the summary of the whole presentation is the principal obstruction to an organization getting to where its managers most want it to be lies in the minds of its managers. It's our head. But I'll give you another so what anyway. So technology can bring bottom line benefits if and only if it diminishes the bottleneck to throughput and therefore revenue. So as you're all focusing, you're like, what can we do to help the developers? We need to help them. Otherwise, we'll cause work to pile up quicker, as you said, sir. Assumptions perpetuating the bottleneck need to be reevaluated as well, as we saw with the bottom left. And so yeah, DevOps is likely to flourish if it's, one, diminishing a bottleneck to throughput, if it's really, in this case, helping the developers, or wherever the bottleneck is, it may not be the developers. And two, if the assumptions that perpetuate the bottleneck, that keep the bottleneck in place, like we had with keep everyone busy all the time, is also removed. If we don't do that, it won't flourish. So yeah, let's get better at some whiz-bang stuff. And yeah, cause-effect thinking can help us work out where we need to focus our efforts. Yeah, and then some books. I'm happy to, I'll share this deck with you, but here's some books that can help. The first few are really helpful in terms of cause and effect thinking through the theory of constraints. And the other one's just busted loads of my assumptions. Curious Coffee Club website with articles. It's me. And they have some bookmarks if you want some bookmarks. But yeah, that's everything. Thank you so much for listening to me for so long and for the questions. They're really good.
So thank you, Simon. Does anyone have any questions after the event? Oh,
No.
No microphone.
What if, let's say, staff should get into like the mic people now?
Yes, that one's enough.
They're not good.
Just repeat the question.
Just repeat the question. I will do it for you. It's okay.
Staff should be utilized 40%, ideally.
Yeah.
But if that's an ongoing project, ongoing company, and it's calculated in 100% utilization.
Yeah.
So to get 40%, you need to hire another 50% of developers.
Yeah.
So what's the likelihood of a project getting delivered before cash runs out?
Okay, try and repeat that correctly, please. So what I'm hearing is, okay, great, so 40% utilization, fantastic. But if we've got projects that have already been calculated that need to be delivered and require 100% utilization, what the hell do we do? Do we hire more people? Do we slow the projects down? Is that that's a really good question. So the thing that always comes back to me for this is, what is the cost of not doing anything? We've seen that if we just carry on as is, those projects are going to get stuck in the pipes. And customers will probably leave before they're completed anyway. So the cost of not doing anything in this case is much higher than choosing a path. And I'm not saying that we should do anything big bang. We might just say, okay, let's help this project first. This project has the greatest shortage of skills. Let's start there. Let's re-level that project and start from there and see, does that actually help? To Glenn's point, scientific method. Does that actually help? Because we believe if we do that, this is what should happen. But if it doesn't, we're wrong. And the whole diagram's wrong. So I'm not sure if you look unconvinced. Tell me more. No. Unconvinced is really good. It makes me dig deeper.
Also on rare skills, going back to the...
Yeah.
That looks like a bottleneck.
The rare skills look like a bottleneck. Yeah.
Yes.
That feels good.
Even other developers can do something, but it's getting stuck there.
Yeah. So you're giving something's coming up from you from what you say, but I think you're leading into that naturally. What comes up for you as you say that?
Because let's say someone working on multiple projects and it's spread thin.
Yep.
A little bit there, a little bit there.
Yeah.
You can't do everything. So
Yes.
developers doing something, and let's say network guy, you can't do nothing because no one knows.
Yes. Yeah, no one knows. Yep.
And instead of hiring another 2 or 3 network guys who do.
Yeah. So I'm hearing, if I understood correctly, that if networking, let's use that as a rare skill example, there's maybe 3 things that we could do. One is train. Second thing is hire. Third is temporarily maybe make sure we don't do projects that require that skill, so we can just clear the pipes a little bit. And that might buy us some time to then give us room for training, give us room for hiring. Is how I understood correctly. I quite like that. If we remove the need for the rare skills, knowing it's not the right thing to do in the long term, but knowing it will help us through the short term, it might be another creative solution. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Thank you.
One assumption I've seen over the years that I've hated is that some companies see that if you give staff lots of time to train and get skills,
Yeah.
they're going to leave and go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Therefore, there's that they have that balance of you want them to have. I've seen it before. I've seen it. They're worried that if you go and get your cert on this, and this, then they'll go, I want more money, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
No, what is the alternative? I mean, I think you've got to train people.
Keep them on training.
Yeah. I feel. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It feels. Sorry. The point was for people online at home that if you train people, they might fly away. So what do we do? And it's a very neutral comment. And I agree. We can't stop people's progress, as you were kind of. I think I could feel that as you said it. We can't stop people's progress, and if they're going to leave, they're going to leave for probably other reasons. We probably need to correct those reasons. So we train them and keep them. Yeah. That feels right.
Richard Branson says,
Yeah.
but imagine what's going to happen if you don't train them.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine. Yeah. So I have to repeat that for online. I love it. Yeah. I didn't know it was Richard Branson. Thank you. Yeah. Well, imagine what happens if we don't train them when they stay. Yeah. Absolutely. Imagine what if we left the mess as it was and just carried on, what would happen? I think that's for both of your questions. That feels like a really helpful answer. Thank you. Any other questions or?
I was going to make an observation.
Please.
Which is, I work for a company that provides secure code enabling to developers. And the biggest issue we have with their programs is actually getting developers to find the time to take the training. Whilst you identify there that people want to train more, the rest of it, there seems to be a culture within the business that it's not work, and therefore I need to do work. I need to do my day job first.
Yeah.
I can't take the time out to train. So, there are assumptions and mental constraints on both sides. It's not just about management saying, we need to have this level of productivity, this level of activity.
Yeah.
It's actually about the developers or employees buy into that and therefore don't see enablement or training as a valid working activity.
Yeah, no, that feels good. Sorry, what I heard was that your clients who need security training, secure code training, the biggest obstacle you encounter is the availability of the developers.
Yeah.
And it feels that, I can feel that. Yeah, it's not just about providing something to them. You need to change the organization, maybe their strategy, their focus. I'm sure there's something deeper than that. For that.
It's back down to the culture of utilization, isn't it?
Yeah, student syndrome, absolutely.
Maybe on your code chart, you have another rectangular that said that utilization means the time that they actually code. And if you make utilization wider, when you say training is part of your job.
That's really good. So you change what the word utilization means.
And that's the part that you need to fix.
Yeah.
Because I feel like having 40% utilization is other words for having more people.
Could be, yeah. But as you say, it doesn't have to.
The culture, the company's culture, saying training and learning is part of your work. It is utilization of your staff.
Productive activity.
Love it.
Go back to physical manufacturing.
That's the cause. That's the root cause.
That
causes that.
Yeah, no.
There's another left side rectangular that I'm missing.
Yeah, no, this feels so much
I
great.
think that's the best answer I've heard. this and last time, that's actually the best answer.
I think so too. And there's something deeper in what you say though, because actually, so this diagram has changed since the last meetup, based on input from my friend mentor Noah, and he has a box further to the left, and the box that he has further to the left, which you're all pointing to very astutely, which I took out wrongly, is that the management is focusing on local efficiencies, and what I mean by that is management is focusing on keeping everyone busy, even if all the other teams apart from development.
Keeping them busy rather than keeping them effective.
Yeah, that too. But it's that too. They're probably forgetting the long term as well. But they're also forgetting that keeping everyone busy when you have sales, marketing, and finance doesn't make any sense. And the definition of busy, as you said, is the wrong definition. So I absolutely love that. Yeah, good point. Between the three of you and particularly your definition of utilization. Thank you. Love it. I need to change it some more. Thank you. And anything else?
Okay, thank you. I think when you said earlier on that there's lots of good people, I always say, or they used to say, a bad system beats a good person every time. So I think there's another saying as well: if you can't change the company, change the company. Yeah, I'm not condoning you going to the companies, but so culture is quite a difficult thing to do. I mean, cultural change is difficult, especially when you're a lone wolf in a company that wants to see change.
It's an emerging property, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Change the system and culture change comes from free, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Simon. Really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For coming along. Big round of applause for Simon. So our next meetup is in March. It'll be March, or whatever today's date is, plus 28 days. So it'll be 4 weeks today. It's actually going to be online. We've got a remote speaker. The reason behind that is because the speaker's actually coming from overseas, so we're not bringing them over, they're going to be doing it remotely. But it's going to be on threat modeling. So it's a really good talk. It's a different view on threat modeling as well, not your usual stride and dread. It's a different approach to threat modeling, which I think you might find interesting. Steve, you got any
Closing statements?
Any statements?
Here. We're going to go to Brewdog. It's just down the road around the corner for beer. Some important things. So sorry, those of you online, you don't get to have any beer with us. And the last thing, which I meant to mention at the beginning, is that I'm moving house and I'm selling my house. So all the wonderful books that you always see on LinkedIn that I own, I brought most of them. So if you like Deming and you want one of his books, it's in my bag right now, along with Phoenix Project and all the ones I've already read. So if you want some free stuff, stay for 5 minutes before Brewdog.
Yeah, that doesn't help you online, people.
Sorry, online people.
Sorry, yes. You got to put some online on you. Right, okay, so there is some food left and some drinks on the back there, so please help yourselves before you go to the Brewdog. And thank you everyone for coming tonight. Really appreciate you coming along. Thank you. Yeah.